ComBank Summit, Forward Together 2025, creating a sustainable future.
Good morning, Ms. Kubota, UNDP representative Sri Lanka, Chairman and MD of the Commercial Bank of Sri Lanka, and also other distinguished invitees, bank CEOs, our colleagues, central bank colleagues here, and all the participants. First of all, let me thank Commercial Bank for the invitation to deliver the speech as a chief guest today at your summit, which is the theme is very timely theme is creating a sustainable future. That is very timely, and also I thank Commercial Bank for organizing this much broader uh, agenda and also inviting all the key participants here and also other representatives coming from abroad, and also the technical workshops that I seen very important, especially covering all the areas environmental, social, and governance, including all the areas. The summit comes at an important juncture of the economy as well as for us, the central bank, since we have just launched Sustainable Finance Roadmap 2.0, which was update of the earlier one that we launched some time ago. This new one will guide the financial sector during the next 5 years in terms of especially environmental and social aspects of the sustainability. Of the governance absolutely will also be looked after. That's main agenda or mandate for the government now. It is being looked after separately. It's indeed a pleasure to see the financial sector or banking sector initiatives like this on sustainability as well as addressing other issues related to environmental and social risk. If I briefly elaborate on the reasons as to why the central bank is involved in climate risk management and sustainable financing, climate change is a phenomena that could have an impact on achieving the dual mandate of the central bank, which is the price stability and also financial stability. There's a direct link and correlation with our key mandates. With the enactment of the new Central Bank Act in 2023, financial inclusiveness also was identified as a duty and one of the functions of the central bank. Since we are now engaged in both environmental and social aspects of sustainability, so we also have a mandate other functions. It's a financial inclusion is part of that. So we took initial steps in introducing guidance to the financial sector on sustainable financing as far as back in 2016. After joining the Sustainable Banking and Finance Network of the IFC, where the first sustainable finance was launched in 2019. In 2022, Sri Lanka Green Finance Taxonomy was introduced as a classification system for the financial sector, serving as a vital tool to facilitate green and sustainable finance activities. Following the release of the taxonomy, Central Bank issued a direction on sustainable finance activities of licensed banks to promote sustainable finance practices and establish a governance framework for such activities. The similar guidance was also issued for licensed finance companies. And also I take note that other regulatory authorities like especially the SEC also have issued and working parallelly promoting this agenda as well. In this context, the banking sector was encouraged to promote sustainability through their lending activities to ensure that their customers give due consideration to the aspects of sustainability, especially the climate and the social aspects. Furthermore, the banking sector needs to take necessary actions to mitigate the physical and transition risk related to climate change by adopting adequate risk management practices and establishing internal policies and strategies on ESG risk management. I'm glad to see that banks are moving in the right direction. In fact, sometimes they were well ahead even before we launched the roadmaps first time. But now they are moving parallel, and I thank the financial sector, state banking sector, for taking the initiative. During the past few years, Central Bank has also taken steps to strengthen the capacity of the finance sector. It's important to capacity building and enhancing is a most important part of this agenda. In collaboration with international agencies and key stakeholders, I must take note of UNDP support, IFC support, and some other agencies supported on this the, the capacity building efforts together with other agencies, especially Sri Lanka Bankers Association as well. Well, you have conducted a series of physical and virtual training programs to enhance knowledge on sustainable finance, policy and regulatory frameworks, and financial instruments. It's equally important that banks continue to invest in building internal capacities, both in terms of human resources and operational infrastructure, and establish robust governance procedure to mitigate the risks of greenwashing. So I'm glad to hear from the MD just mentioned it is not a charity, it's basically a good business. Sustainable Finance Roadmap 2.0, which was launched last month for the next 5 years in consultation with financial sector stakeholders, expands the scope beyond green finance to incorporate social aspects, which is very important, covering a broader spectrum of sustainable finance. And this is one thing banks, for their reputation and the credibility, this social aspect also should be a part of their day-to-day business. Roadmap 2.0 emphasizes the importance of financial inclusion. That's also one important agenda, recognizing that vulnerable and undeserved groups such as women, youth, and the elderly, and also micro, small, and medium enterprises should be key beneficiaries of sustainable finance. By integrating the social dimension of sustainability and promoting equitable access to financial services, the roadmap seeks to ensure that green transformation is inclusive and leaves no one behind. This is again a very important one, incorporating both social and the environmental aspects into the business. The updated framework also strengthens disclosure requirements, ensuring that financial institutions report transparently and accountably on how they are addressing both environmental and social outcomes. And this is some important area where banks need to improve their accountability and also disclosure requirements when doing their business. Having said that, let me draw your attention to one of the concerns as a policymaker and a regulator that we have observed, which is the limited development of innovative financial products and projects. I think Chairman touched on that, both on the demand and supply side. To address this, we have actively engaged in multi-stakeholder dialogues, consulted experts from countries that have successfully transformed their sustainable finance activities, and contributed our expertise and resources to workshops and think tanks focused on developing such products and designing impactful projects. I can remember a couple of weeks ago we had this conference on finance system stability where we had this session focusing inviting global experts in this area as well. However, the expected outcomes have yet to be fully realized within the financial sector, underscoring the need for a stronger collaborative efforts. While our focus tends to be more on addressing climate adversities rather than carbon emissions, I believe that the climate actions initiated by different economic sectors have more emphasis on mitigation than adoption. Therefore, the question on how adoption finance can become a strength of the private sector is crucial. While climate change manifesting through the increasing frequency of adverse weather events worldwide, ESG risk management and sustainable finance demand urgent attention and also not only attention but also actions as well. On one hand, making provisions for heightened risk is essential to maintain financial system stability, which is our mandate. On the other hand, adapting to climate catastrophes is critical for both price stability, our key mandate, and also financial stability, our next mandate. Adoption cannot be the sole responsibility of the state. Greater and more active engagement from the corporate sector, as already mentioned, the banking sector, finance sector, and as well as the corporate sector, which is necessary. Thus, while counting our efforts in mitigation, we must also divert our focus on adaptation finance and maybe extended focus on transition finance, especially given the country's high climate vulnerability. This is where you need a lot of skill enhancement and updated knowledge in these areas. So this kind of workshops and initiatives will certainly help all the communities and stakeholders to enhance their knowledge. It is necessary to take into consideration the physical risk and transition risk in stress testing and capital adequacy assessments. So this is part of the regulatory uh, prudent regulation now. In this respect, banks should upgrade their information systems to assess the vulnerability of their credit portfolios to climate-related risks, which are difficult to predict in advance, but still the financial impact would be significant in case of materialization of climate and natural disasters. However, based on the experience gained over the past few years, it's important to emphasize that sustainability is not a checklist of isolated actions completed at the end of a review period. Instead, it must be deeply ingrained and embedded within both organizational and national cultures. I think this is already mentioned by the chairman of the commercial bank. Moreover, any measures taken forward climate resilience must be forward looking, requiring significant efforts in forecasting climate scenarios, modeling, and research and development to implement necessary reforms. I think this is where the capacity building is quite play a crucial role. I have observed this responsible culture being embraced by a handful of corporates in the financial sector, particularly with their focus on the triple bottom line concept. How this mindset needs to become widespread across the entire sector. This is where grassroots awareness and education play a critical role. That's awareness is very important. In this regard, the initiatives undertaken by the banking sector are highly commendable, and we are happy to be active stakeholders in supporting similar efforts. In 2023, one commercial bank received accreditation from the Green Climate Fund (GCF). As per my understanding, few other banks are also lined up to obtain this accreditation. These are important steps going forward. I encourage other banks also to explore the investment channels available in the domain. This is coming from the demand side, which has considerable potential, especially being a small island economy with the high levels of biodiversity, as already discussed, and a range of ecosystems that we have here. As a regulator of banks and finance companies, we have frequently been asked by financial institutions about the possibility of introducing incentive schemes by the government or central bank to promote this agenda. While regulators in some other countries have successfully introduced such measures, central bank also may consider offering some regulatory incentives for sustainable activities. As the fiscal incentives are unlikely given the current context and also challenges on the fiscal front. How it should be also understood that the long-term development of sustainable finance is not solely dependent on incentive schemes, but it has to be a proper visual business, but rather requires a fundamental cultural shift and also looking at as a business on how risks are addressed. That's important also how to mitigate the risk and the mechanism in place to address those risks. Before concluding my speech for today's summit, I would like to highlight the bigger picture. At this juncture of expansionary monetary policy combined with low inflation, it is crucial for the corporate sector to seize the opportunities presented by these favorable conditions. The countries to introduce innovative financial solutions, new products, as already elaborated by the chairman as well, and explore new ventures. Now it is time to act. This is the best time. I myself and the central bank sincerely hope that this transformative journey will be inclusive and sustainable, ensuring that no one is left behind in this process. With that, I conclude my address and wish you all great success in your deliberation on this endeavor and also of the very nationally important. Thank you very much.